Kate, welcome to the Eat Play Fit podcast, and thank you for talking to me on a weekend. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. Thank you so much for inviting me to come on the show.
Yes, so for the listeners, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do? Who do you serve?
Sure. So my name's Kate Boyle, and I'm located in Melbourne, Australia, which you can probably tell a little bit from my accent. And I am a Pilates instructor and a nutritionist, and I serve two audiences. I have an in studio or in person business. So I have a Pilates and wellness studio, and I serve people generally that are injured or need some help with their health. And so they come in for in person classes. We do rehab work. I do nutrition consults. And online, I'm also online. I have an online membership. So that's a health and movement membership, which is for women, which we really dive in. We do Pilates workouts, we have healthy recipes, and we have guest experts that come in each month and deliver on different health and women's health issues too. So yeah, I serve a few different people, but generally all within the health and wellness area.
Yes, that is so awesome. It's amazing. You were into classical ballet before, and then you switched to health and wellness. As I was reading your bio, I gyrotonic expansion system caught my eye. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So that's another movement modality, and it's one of those things a lot of people haven't heard of before. But it's a system where you can either just use a chair or the mat, or they have equipment like a pulley tower. And it's similar to the Pilates in that we focus on the breath and movement and really connecting the movement. But gyrotonic really has a lot more spiraling in it. So lots more rotation happening through the body. As we extend our arm, we spiral the arm up for everybody that's watching on video. So there's a lot of more waving, rotation. And so I guess in a sense, it's almost that next level to Pilates. A lot of Pilates movements are quite linear in one sort of plane of movement, whereas gyrotonic will take your body in all different movements and rotate it at the same time. So it's a type of, I guess, more advanced movement system. And it's commonly again used in the sort of dancers field and then also again for rehab as well.
That is so awesome. So I have scoliosis, and not only my spine is curved, it is also rotated. I wonder if it helps people with scoliosis as well, or if there is a connection.
Yeah, it definitely would. So again, similar to Pilates, it's about balancing up the muscles within the body, making sure that we're using all our muscles, the back line of our body, the front line, our postural. So again, in gyrotonic, we have this centering that we really work on. So again, connecting to our core and our pelvic floor muscles. So it's really great for things like scoliosis, but also even if you've just had a shoulder injury or a hip injury, you're still going to be getting great benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about maybe, people are always complaining about chronic pain. I don't know of one person who does not have some kind of pain or injuries. What are some things people can do so they can prevent these things?
Well, I think so many more of us nowadays are either at home or working from home with everything that's sort of happened in the last year and a half. So I know a lot of my clients are sitting at their desk for a lot of their day, and potentially sometimes it's longer because, they're interrupted throughout their day at home more. So there are a few things that we can do, and one of them is just scheduling in some movement time. So even if you have to get your diary out at the start of the week and plan it around, whatever work appointments you may have or appointments you have with the kids, but really just scheduling in at least 15 minutes a day that you can move. And whether or not that's getting outside for a walk or, jumping down on the floor and doing a Pilates workout or some yoga, just planning that in is a really big thing. Another one is if you are seated and doing a desk job of any kind, is to make sure that you program in breaks where you can get up and move and walk around. So whether or not that's, every time you're on the phone, you can just, have a stand up and chat standing rather than sitting. You can also set a lot of computers allow you to set like a timer on your computer. So it goes off every half an hour, and that's just your reminder to get up and have a walk. And if you're lucky enough, getting a sit to stand desk can be really beneficial too, so that you
Yes.
can just change throughout the day. So you're not in that seated position. As they sort of say, sitting is the new smoking. So we really, yeah, and it does. The more that we sit, we're not engaging and using our muscles as much. And so that's when we start to build up tightness in our hips. Looking at that computer screen, we start to get the tightness through our neck and our upper
Mhm.
shoulders. Throughout the day, we sort of start to get inch closer, towards the screen. So making sure you're aware of your posture as well. So even if you're just sitting in your chair and you're adding in a few shoulder rolls back, and then adding in just a nice little bit of seated rotation, adding in a few stretches, whenever you can fit them in, can really help as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you're right about the posture, because even if people who are not doing the desk job, even when I see kids these days, they are all already like hunched. And because I think they're always looking at the phone like this. And then everybody complains about the pain in the shoulder. So,
That's it. And, so many more of us are leaning over our phones. And it's amazing. You don't realize what your posture's doing until sometimes when you're out and you see somebody on their phone and they really are hunched over it. And you think, oh, am I doing that too when I'm on my
yeah,
phone? And most of the time we probably are, especially if we're on it for, a prolonged period of time. So any longer than sort of 5 or 10 minutes, then you are, your body's very smart. It'll try to make things easy. And so it will start to slump forward, because that's, an easier posture to get into than having to activate muscles and to sit up tall. So, yeah, again, being on the phone, limit it when you can, but just have that awareness of your posture and how you're sitting. And that can help prevent a lot of pain too.
absolutely. Is there a right way to look at the phone?
Yeah. Well, ideally, we want to have it up at sort of eye
Up right
height.
here
That
like
would be
this?
ideal. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then a lot of people will be like, oh, but then I get a sore arm or shoulder from holding my phone up.
Right.
So I guess the main thing is just to limit, be aware of how much screen timing you'll have. Try to be aware of the posture you have when you are sitting, have the phone a little higher rather than sort of having it on your lap and bending over. And then just being very conscious about maybe where you're sitting, how you have your legs and that too. So sitting right in the center of your sit bones. So underneath your bottom, you've got two bones, one on each side. So making sure you're sitting right in the center of those, so you're not tipped forward or twisting off to one side. And all of those sorts of things will add up over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just being conscious of these little things that help.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, what are some of the other things that you think people could do to to incorporate movement, beside like scheduling the breaks?
Yeah, I think if you've got, some equipment at home, so maybe it's even just a mat, or you might have some hand weights. And even if you don't have hand weights, you can fill up some water bottles or grab some
Yeah.
cans from your pantry. So just adding in some, gentle
Wait.
resistance
Yeah.
work. Yeah, so even if it's body weight work, so things like our lunges and our squats and, holding a plank and push-ups, these are really big movements that are going to get our global muscles, so our big muscle groups, so our quads and our glutes and those types of muscles activating, which is going to give us obviously strength benefits, mobility benefits, so thinking about our flexibility. So even if you don't have big expensive equipment, you can still get a great workout having just some smaller things. So, and sometimes that's more motivating. When you see that your mat's there, maybe you've invested some money in some equipment, you're like, well, I've paid money to buy that. I'm going to use these. So sometimes it's having things that motivate you. Maybe if you have a friend that you can meet up with and sort of say, once a week or twice a week on Tuesday or Thursday morning, we're going to meet up and go for a walk. So having that sort of accountability can really help too. And even for some people, booking into a class. So maybe it's your regular
Yeah.
weekly class, and your instructor is going to wait for you to turn up if you don't turn up. So it gives you that sort of sense of you've got to follow through, gives you some motivation. Maybe you're going to be meeting up with other friends, and having somebody that may
Yeah.
guide you as well. sometimes people, I think, get a little bit unsure. They think, oh, but I'm not an expert in this area and I'm not sure if I'm
Yeah.
doing it correctly. And if you can, either work with a trainer or an instructor that can give you some feedback and guidance, that can really help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you said is so important. Like you really need any fancy equipment. You can fill water bottles and get some resistance out of those. And then
That's
lunges
it.
and squats, like you can just do them at home. You don't need anything else to do those. Yeah.
Well, that's it. I'm often doing them in my kitchen. Like I'll put if there's, I'm waiting for the kettle to boil or something, I'll start doing some squats in the kitchen. And my daughter's always like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm moving. I've been sitting, for the last hour. So, I'm making myself a cup of tea. I'm just going to go in and do some squats right in the kitchen while I'm waiting for the kettle. So there
Yeah.
are really sort of easy ways that you can add, movement in. It's just sometimes being a little bit creative with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some of the other things that could impact our health?
There's, how long is a piece of string when it comes to our health? I think this is, one of those questions. There are so many things, but a couple of the big things that always sort of come up are obviously food, what we're
Yeah.
eating. So if we can, we want to be trying to eat a whole foods diet. And that just means going back to foods that are in its whole form, that doesn't have a list of 10 ingredients. So no packets, going back to, fruits and vegetables and whole grains, good fats. So things like your olive oil and your avocados, walnuts and almonds, these foods that
Yeah.
have good fats in them that are really nourishing. And where we can, obviously limiting our intake of sugars and processed foods, because that's
Yeah.
obviously going to be really beneficial. On top of that, stress is a really big thing, and I think the last year and a half has shown us anything. People have been put under a lot of stress, and that really has a big impact on our health. So having some easy ways that you can manage your stress, whether or not that's being able to go for a walk and get out in nature. Maybe it's meditation for you. It could be journaling. So it can look really different for everybody, but just making sure that you are aware of that and carving out some time in your day that you can de-stress and do some of those activities, whichever one sort of may suit you. And the last couple will probably be movement, which we've obviously been talking about, that we want to reduce the amount of inflammation in our body. So we really want to look after our joints, for longevity, for our quality of life. So moving is really important and a big part of that. And adding in some strength work where you can is obviously going to help build your muscle mass. And at the same time, it boosts your metabolism. So I think that's, just one of those bonuses that, if we are building muscle mass, it's great for our physical health. We're going to boost our metabolism, and it's also going to be really beneficial for our brain health too. So, and then the last one, I guess I would touch on is sleep. And it's one of those ones, I guess, that's really underrated. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, I'll sleep when I can. And they don't seem to worry about it too much. But sleep is when our body does a lot of its rest and repair work. Our cellular repair happens when we're sleeping. So it's really important to be getting a good amount of sleep and good quality sleep too. And again, that can look a little bit different for everybody, but generally between sort of 6 and 8 hours a night is ideal. And making sure that if we can, going to bed around about the same time each night and then waking up at the same time each morning, because our body does work with a circadian rhythm and it will be a little bit different. Some people like to wake up earlier than other people. But if we can really work with our circadian rhythm, we're going to find that we do get better quality sleep than trying to fight against it.
Yeah, for the listeners that may not be familiar, would you be able to explain what circadian rhythm is? And I know sleep is such a controversial topic. What are some ways people can try to get a good quality sleep?
Yeah, so a couple of really simple ways is to turn off your technology at least an hour before you go to bed. So no phones, no iPads, no TV. And what that can help do is those devices emit blue light, and blue light is very stimulating and it reduces our production of melatonin. And melatonin is our sleep hormone that helps us sleep. So in the evening, melatonin within our body should start to rise, and that's sort of the signal within our body that it's time to sleep, it's time to unwind. And then in the morning, melatonin will start to drop as we start to wake up. And that is the natural sort of circadian rhythm that should happen. Now, it is different. Some people, we say are early risers. And so they like to get up earlier in the morning and go to bed earlier at night. And then you have people that we often say are night owls, and they tend to want to stay up later and sleep in more. And neither is wrong. It's just
Yeah.
everybody's obviously body is very different. And if you can work with that, if it's possible with your job and your lifestyle, and you know what type you are, you're either a morning person or a night person. If you can work with that, you're going to get better quality sleep. Also, within our sleep, if we can make sure our bedroom is cool, so you don't want it to be too hot, otherwise you're going to be tossing and turning all night. And then having really good sleep hygiene. So, just making sure that you have a bit of a routine, like we do with our kids. We set them up,
Yeah.
we might bath them, we read them a book, we get them ready for bed. So it's kind of signaling to your brain, oh, we're unwinding, we're not doing any stimulating activities. And as an adult, we can do the same sort of thing. So whether or not if you have a shower in the evening, then you might, read for a little bit before you then go to sleep. Creating some sort of sleep routine can be really beneficial, just to help you sort of be able to go to sleep easily. Because I know a lot of people are sort of like, oh, I go to bed, but I lie there for, an hour thinking about tomorrow's tasks and, everything that I've got to do. So
I'm
having
checking
those
on
sleep.
social media or
Yeah,
something.
that's it.
Right?
Flicking through the phone, what's happening on Instagram, and all of those things are very stimulating. And so your brain, you're sending signals to your brain and your body that it's not time for sleep. And plus, with your phone and you're getting that light, that bright light, so it is keeping you awake. So creating those routines, getting rid of that technology if you can, and making sure you've got a cool environment are all just a few ways that will help you get better sleep.
Yeah, yeah. I have little kids, and they fight me tooth and nail. Like they just do not want to sleep. They won't have technology, but they just want to jump or do whatever. I'm like, how are you not
Yeah.
tired? So
Well, my
sometimes I'm
eldest
up
daughter,
fighting with them.
we're a bit like that. My daughters are 5 and 7. So we will put them to bed, and within 10 minutes, one will be back up, and you take them to bed. And then 10 minutes later, the next one is up. And there's always something, that they want to get up for. But I guess, kids are a bit the same. They've got higher energy levels, and they just want to be around you all the time. So it's
Yeah.
definitely something every parent has to work with, that's for sure.
Yep, yep, yeah. The schools are opening here in another 2 weeks, so I am trying to get them to sleep on time because there were no schools since the pandemic. It was roll out of the bed, log into the computer, and that was school. So
Yeah,
this
we're
is
doing that now. We are still in
yeah,
lockdown here in Melbourne,
right.
so we are homeschooling, and yeah, the same sort of thing. We are still trying to keep that bedtime routine going, but there have been a few mornings where they've been rolling out, yeah, not long
Yeah.
before the morning meeting. So yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, yeah, it will be such a difficult habit to break because I realize my son is not a breakfast person and he wants to eat a little bit later. And we could never do that when he had to go to school. But with the homeschooling, they could like snack while studying. It was just an
Yeah,
interesting dynamic. I'm like,
that's it. That
really?
I'm I'm sure the kids have enjoyed some of the aspects of homeschooling.
Oh, they loved it. My daughter, like, she never went to school. She only did the online school. So
Ah,
she is not very excited about going to like an actual school. The only thing she's excited about is the school bus. So at
oh,
least
really?
that's something she's looking forward to. But she's
Oh.
like, no, why are you sending me to school?
Well, that's it. If they don't know any different, my 5-year-old she's just started school this year. So she had
Right.
some school, and then we went back into another lockdown. And I said to her the other
Yeah.
day, I said, "You looking forward to going back?" And she's like,
No.
no, she misses her friends, but she's like, I really
Yeah.
like being at home. Like, I like being at home. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
I guess
I
so.
know. Yeah. Yeah. So, if you could tell the listeners maybe, a few things they can do, like, maybe let's focus on a morning routine. What can they do in the morning to get them started right? We talked about sleep.
Yeah, so one really great thing you can do is if you can expose yourself to some morning sunlight, that is really great because it triggers your body to start producing cortisol. Now, cortisol is a stress hormone, but we want a little bit of it in the morning to make us awake and, be able to concentrate and be alert. So that morning sunlight is going to help just bring that cortisol up, and it's also going to reset your circadian rhythm. So it actually, if you're getting that morning sunlight, it means that you can actually produce melatonin more easily in the evening when it comes to bed. So most people sort of think when it comes to sleep, they have to think so much about when they go to sleep, but getting that morning sunlight the next morning actually sets them up for that night. So morning sunlight is a really big thing. And if you can do that, whether or not you're moving, so you go out for a walk or you do some stretches out in the sun, about 10 to 15 minutes is a really great amount of time. And then you're also getting just a little bit of that morning sun and vitamin D, which is obviously really great for our health. And that morning sun, especially for us here in Australia, is a lot less harsh. So we're not getting that UV that can, lead to skin cancer and all that sort of stuff too. So that's a really great thing to do, is just get out in the morning, get a little bit of sunlight, moving your body. So whether or not, as we said, you're doing a few stretches, yoga, just going for a short walk, that can be great just to get your circulation going, wake up your metabolism. So as you're sort of saying, a lot of people aren't hungry in the morning. So if we can just get moving a little bit, it kind of signals our body that we're waking up. The gastric juices start to move, and that's when we might then start to feel like, oh, we are starting to feel a bit more hungry. So that's a great thing. Obviously, adding in breakfast. So if you can add in a healthy start to your day, and when we say healthy, that looks a bit different for everybody, but really we're looking for a nutrient dense meal. And that means that we want some carbohydrates, some good fats, and some protein. So there's a few different ways. That could be you're having some eggs with some grilled mushrooms, and some spinach and tomatoes. So that would look like, a balance, maybe some avocado for your good fat. Or you could have a smoothie where you've added in, some fruit, maybe some berries, some avocado for your good fat, or peanut butter, almond milk. So getting a mix of those nutrients is really going to be, again, great to set you up for your day. And especially if you're the type of person that you like to reach for something sugary later in the day, having that start to your day is going to help just minimize your changes in your blood sugar. So it just means that you're going to be less likely, to want to reach for that sugary snack later on.
Yeah, no, that is such a great tip, because I know people like wake up and then they just start getting ready to go to work, and then breakfast is on the go, and there is just no time. So if they wake up and then go outside even for 5 minutes, and that triggers their body that, okay, now it's time for breakfast, right? And
That's
it's just
it.
with a little bit of planning. It doesn't take a long time to cook an egg, for example. Throw it in the pan, throw some frozen spinach, and you're done.
That's it. Or you can make things the night before. So things like chia pudding. So, chia pudding is just chia seeds, which is really healthy for you because they've got omega-3 fatty acids, which is our good type of fat we need. You can put in either normal milk, almond milk, coconut milk, as well. And you mix that together with a bit of honey or vanilla, stick it in the fridge. And then the next morning you pull it out, pop some berries on it, sprinkle of muesli, and there's breakfast. So, breakfast
Yeah.
doesn't have to be complicated to, a lot of people think sort of, being healthy is complicated and time
Yeah.
consuming. But, just that 2 minutes of prep work the night before and breakfast is done and ready in the morning. So having some of
I have,
those sort of
yeah.
things is good too.
I have all of those ingredients. I have this on and off again chia pudding thing, because I have so many chia seeds, and I think I eat them and then I get bored of them, and then they go to the back of the pantry.
So
But I have
true.
almond milk, I have some nuts, I have some berries, and I have chia seeds. So I'm going to make them tonight. And
Yeah,
usually
I
what
think
I make them, I make like 3 or 4 cups together. and then just leave them in the fridge so I can eat it as a snack. I could eat it as a breakfast. It's so
That's it. So
convenient.
you can either in the afternoon, so when you sort of have that dip in the afternoon, that's when we usually are a bit like, oh, I feel like something sweet. You can still have your chia pudding with some berries. So you're getting that bit of sweetness and some of those natural sugars rather than sort of reaching for a biscuit or a muffin or something that you know is probably not so healthy for you.
No, and it is so filling because it expands. So it absorbs water and expands. So it gives you feeling of fullness like immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And you can make a couple, I usually sometimes make a sort of a double batch. So it'll give me either two breakfast worth, or sometimes my girls will have a little bit with some yogurt and berries as a snack in the afternoon too. So that's another thing. You don't have to make it every night. You can make a slightly bigger batch and it will last you a couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely. That is such a great tip. What might, since you are such an expert on nutrition, I might ask you, what are your some lunch hacks?
Lunch hacks. There, what I really like to do for us here in Australia, it's winter at the minute. So
Yeah.
I'll often make a batch of soup and then make it on the weekend, stick it in the fridge, and then I've got it for the week. So I do like to do more of that sort of meal prep stuff. So there's not a lot that you have to do. Another thing I really like doing is roasting veggies. So I'll get a mix of vegetables like broccoli, zucchini, capsicum, carrot, chop them up, stick them on some trays, pop them in the oven. So about 20 to 30 minutes. They're all roasted. And then you've got a really nice roasted vegetable salad. So on top
Yeah.
of that, you can add in some, if you want some sort of shredded chicken or even a can of tuna, drizzle a little bit of olive oil, a squeeze of lemon, and then either sometimes I sort of pop some pumpkin seeds or sesame seeds and
Yeah.
things just on top. So again, really easy, healthy meal. You're getting a really good balance of your carbohydrates from your vegetables, your fats from your olive oil or avocado, that your walnut oil that you might pop onto it, and then your protein. So whether or not you want to put some goats or feta cheese or
Yeah.
some, chicken or whatever, you've got a really great balanced meal.
Yeah, no, that is such a great idea. And a sheet pan is like a large portion too, so you can use it for 2 or 3 times. I mean, that totally works.
Exactly. And I'll often sort of make that batch, and whether or not we have it for dinner one night and then there's leftovers for a few days for lunchtime, or you just make it up as sort of, a lunch meal, just pre-do the veggies, stick them in the fridge, and then you just dish some out at lunchtime and add a few toppings. So yeah, that's another one I like doing.
Do you use herbs and spices or seasonings?
Yeah, so a really easy seasoning is if you add just probably about 4 to 5 teaspoons of olive oil, add in a squeeze of, we want some acidity. So whether or not that's lemon, lime, some apple cider vinegar, red wine vinegar. So a couple of tablespoons of that. And then whole grain mustard or French mustard, some sort of mustard that you can add in, and then you can do a sprinkling of herbs. So whether or not that's fresh or dried, you might want to use parsley, oregano, some fresh basil. Pop them in a jar, give it a really good shake, and then just pour it over your salad. So again, really easy ingredients that most of us
Yes.
have at home. Some sort of, type of herb and stuff we'll have, whether or not it's dried or fresh. And there's, no bought, lists of ingredients, and you can whip it up in 30 seconds or so. So yeah, that's what I like to just sort of drizzle over the top.
No, that is so easy, so delicious, and so good for you. And I mean, it sounds like a gourmet meal, and really, you didn't even have to do anything. Stick the veggies in the oven, and then just shake the dressing, and then put it on top, and you're done.
That's it. And we know, the vitamin A and that we need to absorb with fat. They're fat soluble vitamins. So having that olive oil or that avocado and that good fat, within those veggies means that you're going to absorb those vitamins more easily. So it is important, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want any dressing on my salad. Maybe they're thinking they have to watch their weight or whatever. it does matter what type of dressing you have. Like if it's mayonnaise or something, then no, that's not going to be as good for you. But if it is things like olive oil, avocado oil, walnut oil, those types of dressings will actually help you absorb more of the nutrients from those vegetables. So it is good to add on.
Yeah, and also they make the food taste good, because a lot of time when people are eating for good health or trying to lose weight, they think they have to eat boring food. No, you don't. You can make food
No,
taste good.
that's it. And, it's got to taste good. Otherwise, we're not going to go back to eating it, are we? That's why we go, oh, I'm going to reach for, the burger instead because that's got more flavor. So don't
Right.
be as scared, I guess, of adding fat in for flavor, okay? Because majority of the time, one, it's going to improve the taste of the food, but two, if it's our good types of fats that we've kind of been talking about this morning, it's actually going to be really beneficial for your health as well.
Yeah, I know fat, like people either demonize carb or sugar or fat, but really, a balance of everything is all you need. And people are actually scared of adding fat because everything is low fat. Like they're on either end of spectrum, or there is another end where I'm not going to eat any carbs and sugar, and I'm just going to go keto and drink fat. So it is
Yeah.
just crazy.
Exactly. And it really comes down, every person is very different. And, a lot of people sort of will come to me and sort of say, oh, you're a nutritionist. What diet is best? And, every person is very different. They live in different areas, they have access to different foods. So it's really finding something, a diet that suits you and your body. But we know at the end of the day that we don't need to cut out any of the food groups unless, unless you're a celiac and you've got an autoimmune condition and therefore you shouldn't eat gluten. But otherwise, we should be able to eat a balanced diet and we should be able to enjoy, fat, and we should be able to enjoy carbohydrates. We don't need to cut out potatoes, or pasta if it's part of a balanced diet. So I think it's just coming back to that, everything in moderation, listening to your body. So, if you, every time you have pasta, you get indigestion and you don't feel well, then maybe pasta isn't for you. Okay. Maybe you need to look for something else. So listening to your body's cues is really important too.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you find, you work with movement so much. Have you find a relationship between, I think you did mention that moving helps kickstart your metabolism, how when we age, or at least people say that I am putting on weight because I am older, my metabolism has slowed down, and sometimes they are just excuses, or maybe there is some truth to it. So have you found a relationship between movement and nutrition and metabolism?
Yeah, so as we do age, our metabolism does start to drop. We don't need as much energy in our 70s as we do in our 20s and 30s. So I think that's one thing to be aware of, or maybe that we're maybe not aware of, is that as we age, we don't need as much, energy essentially. And I think, in depending on where you live, but here in Australia, food is abundant, it is
Yeah.
everywhere. You can get it really easily and quickly, with, takeaway food and fast food, that I think, majority of us probably do eat a little bit too much or do indulge a little bit too much too often. And that can be part of the reason why we do hold on to our weight. But the other thing is too, is there can be hormonal balances. So especially for women, if our hormones are a little bit out of whack, so if we are quite stressed and our body is producing cortisol all the time, which is a stress hormone, then that's going to, one, we're probably going to tend to want to emotionally eat and sort of reach for foods like high sugar foods that give us that hit of feeling, safe,
Comfort.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of those types of things. So we might be in that sort of a cycle. But if that's happening as well, we also have low grade inflammation happening. And that's when, nothing is really happy in our body. You might find that you get sort of joint pain, you might have gut issues, you'll might find that you're tired all the time. Sleep might not be very easy for you. So you wake up a lot. You might have thinning hair or nails that sort of crack really easily. So there's often signs that tend to come through, and that can have a big effect as well on our health. And hormonal health is one of those things. I think it's coming to the forefront, now. A lot more people are talking about it. But previously, it was usually, oh, well, if you're carrying some excess weight, it's probably just because you're eating too much and not doing enough exercise. And you'd have people say, but I'm eating really well and I'm exercising, but I'm not losing any weight. And a lot of the time it can come back to your hormones are really out of whack. So your body is sort of saying, when it does get that food, I need to hold on to this food because there's a lot of stress happening, or maybe you're not eating enough. So a lot of women don't eat enough, and so they, the bit of food that they do get, their body goes, well, I don't know when I'm going to eat again. I've got to keep all of this energy. I'm not going to let you burn it off. I'm not going to let you use it on all these cellular processes because I've got to stay alive. So breaking down that hormonal imbalance can sometimes be really crucial. And then adding in your exercise, but making sure you're aware of where you're at. So if you're somebody that has some hormonal imbalances happening, things like running and high intensity activities are not going to be great for your system. Okay. It's really just going to deplete it even more. And that's where you might need to look at more restorative forms of exercise. So as we were touching on before, things like Pilates, yoga, walking, they're exercise that are still giving your body movement, but it's not stressing your system too much and causing further sort of imbalance in your hormones.
Yeah, no, that is so valuable. Thank you. Um, yeah, we learned so much. This was such an absolutely delightful and knowledgeable conversation. Thank you for talking to me today. And I
No
will have
worries. Thank you so
all of
much.
your,
Okay.
yeah, I'll have all of this
Okay.
information and your bio on this show notes. But once again, can you tell us where can people find you, and any last words?
Sure. So you can find me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Mind Movement Health. And you can check me out on my website at mindmovementhealth.com.au. And I also have a podcast called Mind Movement Health too. So I really easy across the board, all the same. But thank you so much for having me on. It's talking to you. And I guess some final words for listeners is, we've gone through a lot today. We've kind of delved into, exercise and food and hormones and sleep. But at the end of the day, you want to keep health really simple and easy. So rather than sort of feeling overwhelmed by it all, just take out one step that you can instigate today. So maybe, that one thing is you're going to drink more water today, or you're not going to stay up super late and you're going to go to bed at 10 p.m. instead of midnight. So just break health down into really small, easy steps and just do one thing at a time. And if you have a bit of a setback, don't worry about it. Just give yourself a bit of grace and then start again.
Yes, this is so valuable. Yeah, we want to try to do everything all at the same time, and then when we are not able to do it, we think that we are a failure because we couldn't do it. But really, it is just adding one thing at a time, and that is how that is not only simple, that also gives you confidence that okay, you mastered this one thing, and then you can move on to the next one.
Exactly. And I think too, we've got to be aware if you've got, young kids, a really busy lifestyle. It depends where you're at in your life as well. If you've got lots of things going on, just add in that today you're going to drink more water, or this week, your goal is to drink more water. That's something you're already doing anyway. So it's really easy to add to that rather than sort of going, oh, I'm this week I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week when you haven't been going at all. Because setting those types of goals, it can sometimes just you don't go once or twice and then you go, oh well, I'm just going to give that up straight away. So I think making it as simple as you can for yourself is just a really easy place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much once again. This was a delightful conversation. I really appreciate you coming on, and that too on a weekend. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks so much.